Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. On today's episode, we'll be recapping the NFL's Week 6 action, giving an update on our ongoing season-long betting competition, which is not going so well for one of us.
No, that's me.
And we'll talk briefly about the MLB playoffs before getting into Week 7 in the NFL in our new picks that will hopefully be better than our more recent picks have been. Mike, this week in the NFL was pretty frustrating, I think, to watch anyway. Lots of injuries and teams dealing with injuries. Are you more concerned about one team than another going forward now after this last weekend's carnage on the field with all the injuries? Like San Francisco had multiple injuries. Like many teams' quarterbacks went down this week. Anybody you're more concerned about than others?
Well, I guess if I were, let's say, might say if I were a fan of these teams, would I be concerned? Because the Chiefs escaped pretty unscathed, and it seems like they're actually gaining strength as they'll get Omenihu back next week, and maybe they're also thinking of getting, possibly Mecole Hardman back or Trent Clark back. So it seems like they're actually kind of getting
getting stronger even, yeah.
Justin Watson maybe is out, but that's not really a huge loss.
Yeah.
Even though he's been one of the better receivers for the Chiefs. But I guess I would be most concerned if I were the 49ers, because the quarterback wasn't hurt. It was just injuries that happened to major cogs in the machine. But I think
multiple cogs though too.
Yeah. Well, we have Deebo Samuel getting injured. I don't know if he's coming back next week or not.
He missed most of the game.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, of course, but those guys are both. It seems like the 49ers have a lot of injury history. They're one of those, a little bit like the Chargers, where players seem to always drop left and right. And McCaffrey has been injury prone his entire career, and he's just such a little guy that I think he really has to exert himself out there to do a lot of the things he does. And maybe that's what happened with his possible oblique injury. But so it really made Purdy look pedestrian, like he was the 7th round draft pick. Again, it was rainy, and the 49ers also lost a rainy game last year to the Bears, I believe, and they lost a kind of bad weather game to the Broncos, I think, early on. I don't know if the weather was that bad in Denver or not, but it was like these ugly kind of low scoring games that sometimes the 49ers fall into. But
I think they lost. They had an offensive lineman drop too, I think, during this game this week.
Yeah,
so, just to make it harder.
Was it Trent Williams? The Trent Williams?
Yeah, Trent Williams. That's it.
He's their best lineman. So I guess I would worry about them. Although probably if I were a team, mostly I would worry if a quarterback was injured. I think the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence is probably the biggest concern. You would have thought maybe the Browns without Deshaun Watson, but PJ Walker filled in pretty well, and they actually beat the 49ers. So maybe the Jaguars, or
even with all the injuries though, Purdy did drive the team down to get an attempt at a winning field goal that should have been made, but just wasn't at all.
41 yards in a kind of muddy.
It seemed like the field was improving as the game went on, because it's like it stopped raining, I think, at halftime ish, somewhere in there. So it wasn't like still wet, I don't think, anyway. But I mean, the field would have still been wet, but the ball wasn't as bad anyway.
We're really terrible though, even by any standards. Like, he was under 50% passing.
Oh yeah, it was not good.
It looked like Joe Burrow kind of early in the season. Those numbers, the way his were, so awful. I don't. Do you have who would you be the most concerned about? Which team? If you were?
I mean, whatever hope that the Bears had of having any kind of recovery to their season. Like, Fields seemed like he was getting it together in week 5, but then thumb injury. I'm not really sure. I think how serious it's going to be, but apparently he's having trouble gripping the ball. That is kind of something you need to do if you plan on throwing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty bad. And it looks like a bad season getting much worse.
I would agree with that. Also, you might think, well, the Giants, but they should have actually beaten the Bills. Even
Yeah,
with Tyrod, I think Tyrod Taylor's not really much of a downgrade from Daniel Jones.
yeah,
But yeah, they couldn't manage the clock well at the end of the first half, and that forced them to scramble at the end of the second half as well. And they should have had at least probably two more field goals. They should have won that game 15-14 probably, or because
yeah,
yeah. So the Bills are a little bit concerning right now, and the fact that they play such ugly, they can play such ugly games with maybe it's just with the New York teams. I don't know. They struggled. They also struggled against Jacksonville in London. So
yeah.
they're extremely hot and cold, it seems like. And
Mm.
usually at this point in the regular season, they're still hot. They haven't cooled off yet. They usually are like 7-1, 9-2, or something, and then kind of they slow down. Now they're already 3-3 or 4. I guess they're 4-2, but they could easily have been 3-3. So I would but every team, it seems like, is having its flaws exposed already this season. So even Miami, who blew the doors off pretty much everybody, got the same thing happened. Buffalo did this exact same thing to them that they were doing to everybody else. So there's
That's
no
funny.
perfect team out there anymore in terms of record, and
Yeah,
it seems like no team has played a 6 perfect games. Maybe the Chiefs, you might think, are in better shape than a lot of those teams because, well, they've played not so well in really any of their games. I don't, except maybe Chicago, which didn't really end up mattering.
yeah,
uh they still won most of those and only barely lost to Detroit through kind of miraculous kind of happenstance, including guys who were not playing and things like that. So maybe you could say that as well for the 49ers loss to the Browns. It was sort of a freak set of circumstances that caused them to lose. But
yeah.
Philadelphia had kind of been treading on the edge.
Almost trying to lose, it seemingly.
Yeah, well, a little bit like the Chiefs kind of had been. I don't know if you think is Hurts somebody that people have kind of figured out. We said this about Lamar Jackson last time. Has he been? Have these guys been just said, well, we're just going to have you guys throw. We're not going to let you run very much anymore. Is that just the recipe to beating a dual threat quarterback, is making them throw?
I think this week was another lineman injury. One of their the Eagles' better linemen, I think, went down during the game, and that made it much more difficult on Hurts, and it led to what, 4 interceptions in the game. It was
Yeah, Lane Johnson got hurt. Yeah, lateral sprained ankle. So right tackle, though, you'd say, well, even if he's one of your best guys, he's still the right tackle. It's not maybe the most
your interior guy. That's, yeah.
well, yeah, for interceptions. I guess you don't want anybody to rush around on your right, but Hurts is right handed and he's a running quarterback, so he's facing
That's
that
not the
side.
blind side. That's
Yeah,
his.
it's not the left tackle side. So, but still, Hurts has been. Maybe do you think Julio Jones being signed by the Eagles is going to help them?
Uh,
Passing
what
game?
what year is it, Mike? Maybe that's the
In
question. And
2017, this would have been a huge, huge,
yeah,
huge. Even maybe as far back as or as far as recently as 2019 or 2020, that would have been a really good signing. But Jones hasn't really played a ton since then, and but it's just maybe trying to get a ring. This is somebody maybe you would
yeah,
think Chiefs would have tried to sign somebody like that as a veteran to kind of become a possession receiver, but
yeah,
I don't know if the Eagles have been having trouble getting the ball to both AJ Brown and Devontae Smith this year. So I don't know if adding another receiver like that is necessarily going to help a ton, unless we think, well, Hurts needs a security blanket, and well, we have Goddard already for something like that. So I don't know. Um,
Well, they've been so rush heavy anyway. That's where, the passing game isn't traditionally been their strong suit with Hurts, at least anyway.
no, he had a really good year last year for a lot of the season, and then he had a wonderful playoff run. Super Bowl, he was great too. But then,
Yeah.
but it seems like most of his career, he's not been a fantastic pocket passer when he's had to be. And maybe having more short options like that will help. Maybe having somebody like, maybe run an offense similar to what Purdy runs in San Francisco, where you have guys who are seemingly, at least until last week, seemingly always available across the middle for someone to throw to. And it's or you could say, well, maybe this is just growing pains, just the way the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes have had growing pains in years after successful seasons, when people try something new against them and it doesn't quite work out well. I think there just needs to be maybe more games to figure out, are these teams just having a run of bad luck, or is it actually that teams are figuring them out?
Yeah. Well, and I think in this, you and I both had talked about this, I think, before we were on air today, at least anyway, about how many teams like played well in week 5 and then played awfully in week 6. So it's like whatever we're using like to try to make our picks using some kind of recency bias apparently means nothing at all. Like maybe even just like going opposite of however a team played this week maybe is better to look at for making your picks for the next week. I
I
don't.
think I think a kind of a gambler's axiom is, don't look at last week. Try to look at the numbers by themselves, and just kind
For
of
the
not.
whole season and don't use a recency bias.
Yeah, try not to use any recency bias, because I think that'll bite you, especially if you're playing like if you're betting on or against kind of middling teams. And the reason that they're kind of in the middle or not so good is because they're inconsistent. And if they were consistent, they'd be good, and they'd be the Chiefs, they'd be the 49ers, they'd be the Eagles, they'd be these teams that are consistently good. And if they, if they're consistently bad, well, maybe you can predict them. And most of the teams in the NFL are kind of in the middle. And if they were consistent, they would be they'd be the top. I think more teams are like the Steelers or the Raiders or the Saints, Buccaneers, these kinds of up and down teams that they'll shut somebody out one week and then get beaten by Houston the next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as time, it seems like, well, maybe we'll figure things out too as time goes on with our stats. We didn't really do terribly well on our locks or shoe-ins of the week. I think each of us ended up being 1 and 2. Do you want to talk about our bets this week?
Sure.
Speaking of teams that were inconsistent, I I'll mention, since I mentioned New Orleans, I picked New Orleans -1.5 at Houston, and they ended up losing outright in Houston. And so that was a miss. The Houston is 3-3 this year. Do you think Houston is a team that is a potential playoff team from the NFC South with CJ Stroud as the quarterback? They won
It,
20 over the Saints.
it seems like they're playing pretty well, and I mean, that was the team that I had thought maybe had been the better set up for the coach, at least anyway, because they could make more changes and bring in the personnel they wanted, since they were basically full rebuild. All of it happening at the same time. New coach, new first round draft pick, and lots of picks actually coming in, and they've done pretty well in the first couple of weeks. Kind of a nice surprise to see them actually doing well.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit of a fluke given the stats of the game.
Yeah.
Derek Carr threw for 353 yards. CJ Stroud threw for 199. New Orleans had 430 total yards. Houston 297. They did have one more turnover than Houston did, but sometimes that's just a little bit of bad luck. But in terms of yardage. It seems like New Orleans probably should have won that game, but yeah, Stroud was only 13 of 27 for 199, but he had 2 touchdowns, only 1 pick. Carr had a touchdown interception, but he threw for 154 more yards. So
Yeah.
I was looking at the leaders. Like if you look at the ESPN thing, it says passing leader Carr, rushing leader Kamara, receiving leader Olave, and then of course the Saints lose that game to the Texans, even though they had the highest rusher, receiver, and quarterback passer. So like it's yeah, sometimes these games are just wacky sometimes, and you can't really
Yeah.
predict them. Maybe we were talking about this off the air too. Maybe the second road game in a row is bad for a team. So the Saints won at New England very easily. Now they're going to Houston, not very far from New Orleans, really. It's probably the closest. It's probably the closest destination. Do you think maybe Jacksonville or Atlanta? They're all not too far. Tennessee possibly, but
Yeah. Well, as long as they're going home first, and then
home
from
first.
home to
Yeah,
Houston is close. Yes. Right.
yeah. But yeah, so it's still a road game. It's a second road game. This is one of
Yeah.
those things like I think also I was reading about in London if um when Jacksonville plays two games in a row in London, they always win their second game, it seems
Yeah.
like because they've become acclimated maybe to it.
Yeah.
The other team has
Provided
uh
they don't come home for that week in between.
yeah, that would be
I
dumb.
assume they did not.
Yeah. But and you wonder well is that what's going to happen with San Francisco? You know, they went to Cleveland, now they're going to be at Minnesota next week. Do they go home in between? Do they stay out there in the Midwest, maybe stop in Chicago kind of halfway in between?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but I think they probably go home since it's I so you think the 49ers would have the hang of these long road trips by now, or any of the coastal teams
Yeah.
would. So but it's still maybe something to keep an eye on, which I'm trying to keep an eye on when in my coming up picks as sort of a preview. But I
Yeah.
still thought that even though it was another road game for New Orleans, I still thought they'd be able to beat Houston at home, but they were unable to. Well, how about your first pick?
My first pick's a game we already mentioned at least a little bit anyway, was the San Francisco at Cleveland. I had the over at 37 and a half. And there were, I believe, 3 missed field goals in that game, and some other, things that could have led to more points, but did not. Final score was 19-17. Cleveland's with 36 points, just a point and a half shy.
Yeah,
And then, the game-winning field goal sailing right. That was really frustrating. As a fan, as having watched Brock Purdy play college ball, make it to the NFL, get to play in some of these games, undefeated record as a starter in the regular season, and then doing just enough to set the team up to win, and then not only not win, but then not come to this and not win the game, and then or not hit the over on that. That's all that they needed there.
Yeah, I did have the under in our thing. It was one of the few things I this was one of the weeks if we had gone blanket under, we would have really cleaned up.
Yeah.
I did pretty well over under this week. That was the only thing I even remotely did well in the total competition was going under, because I went under more often than I went over, and I ended up being positive a couple $100, just like you were. But yeah, I just did terribly on the money line, terribly on the spread. I couldn't get anything right this past week, so
Yeah.
kind of just trying to recombobulate myself, as they
Yes.
say in the airport, right? Isn't that the recombobulation area? Or is it something like that they call the
Oh,
when
I
you
don't know.
go through the metal detectors, and
Oh, right after that. I didn't
you,
know there was a name for that area.
I think it's something like that. Was it? I don't know why. Yeah, recombobulation airport. At least some of them say recombobulation.
Oh.
Maybe it's Milwaukee that calls it that. Okay, I've been to Milwaukee.
Mhm.
I don't. Maybe they call it something else elsewhere, but they call it the recombobulation area.
Nice.
Milwaukee, and I guess I've been to Milwaukee Airport recently when they've had that, but yeah, but I don't know. So yeah, we neither of us were good on those first two games. I also was unsuccessful in my one of my under bets. I picked two unders. One of them was good. One of them was not. The one that did not work was the under on Indianapolis and Jacksonville. I also, I believe, picked Indianapolis possibly to win that game outright, since I had thought that having Gardner Minshew would actually be a advantage, and I wasn't totally convinced that maybe coming back to the United States, the Jaguars would continue their winning ways, and I was incorrect on both those counts. It was high scoring, 37-20, so 57 total points, well over 44 and a half. And yeah, Jacksonville maybe is trying to some kind of cement its hold on the AFC South, winning against Indianapolis in Jacksonville.
I think Trevor Lawrence maybe had a knee injury towards the end of that game, but it sounds like he's maybe recovering quickly, and they're hoping that he can be back for the Monday night game this week.
Yeah, I think he's hoping he can be back for it's actually Thursday night game, so they're playing on
Thursday. That the Thursday night? Oh, that is the Thursday night game.
They're playing the early game, so if he's so that's only 4 days, so he must be feeling pretty good if they're thinking, well, maybe he can play on Thursday. So if it was Sunday or Monday, he'd probably definitely be playing. So if it's Thursday,
it's a McCaffrey is for the Monday night game. That's what
McCaffrey.
We're hoping that McCaffrey's going to be back for the Monday night game. That's it.
Yeah. So, but they think maybe
long injury.
Well, Lawrence might be he's optimistic that he can play for Thursday. He practiced with a brace on it on Tuesday, so he'll probably play. If you can, I don't. Do you know who the backup quarterback is in Jacksonville?
Nope.
CJ Beathard. CJ Beathard.
Yes.
University of Iowa product. So he's automatically he was not a good starter in San Francisco when he was the backup there. And this is why you get guys like Brock Purdy and people like that have come in and done a lot better. But yeah, so that was in Garoppolo, of course, that's why he was brought in, because Beathard was not really a capable backup either. So, but yeah, they have so Jacksonville, like, they're playing those Saints in New Orleans on Thursday, and I am staying away from that game. I have no idea. Jacksonville is a 1.5 point underdog on the road in New Orleans, and I will have to make a pick before Thursday just for our purpose. I have no idea what
so it's not going to be one of your locks. It is a preview of what is not one of your locks.
One of my it is not. It is a very pickable lock if it is a lock. I think it's an unlock. Maybe it's an unlock of the week, that it's just we're just going to leave that door wide open and not lock it at all. So how about your second pick that also turned out not to be a lock?
Not so lock. I will say though too about the under 13 of the 15 unders were correct this week, and you managed to get one of the wrong ones.
Yes 13 out of 15.
Yeah, frustrating.
Indianapolis Jacksonville went over.
Yeah,
I picked that one. We go through your second anti-triumph.
With another game we already kind of mentioned a little bit too. I had Philly -7 at the Jets, and it turned out that Philly was unable to not just cover, but also was not able to win the game either. So breaking their perfect record.
Yes.
Now 5-1.
That was this week when I went against that Jets. So when I went against your locks, I did pretty well. but I thought that the Jets might make it a close game. I actually didn't think the Jets were going to win outright, but so that was that game was an ugly game. It's turned out Robert Saleh has talked about how his Jets team has embarrassed every quarterback that they have faced so far, whether or not they've won or not. Would you agree with him about quarterback performance? I guess how Mahomes, the Chiefs beat the Jets, but Zach Wilson outplayed, at least by the stats,
Mm,
throwing stats at least, Mahomes most of that night. Mahomes ran very, very effectively, but he
yeah.
threw 2 interceptions, maybe almost 3 or 4 that night. Do you think the Jets defense is really, really good, or is it just that when your offense isn't so good and the defense is playing well, it just kind of looks like they're better than they are?
Yeah, well, I mean, chances are they're just looking for something to boast about because the team doesn't look all that great right now as a whole. So I don't know. I think it's more of a New York, just being loud persona sort of thing than anything else. But I mean, their pass defense obviously is pretty good.
Yeah, they have a good pass
Probably
defense.
not a playoff team, with only a pass defense though.
Well, you
That's
never
the
know. I guess
win.
you've heard that out that Aaron Rodgers is on the road to recovery. He's supposed to maybe come back as early as week 12. I've heard from his torn Achilles, which would be completely shocking, and maybe just due to his transcendental meditation or his ayahuasca practice, or maybe it wasn't torn as severely. This is probably most likely. It was not torn as severely as previously thought, or maybe he does. I don't know. Have you heard these rumors about Rogers coming back during the season?
I'd heard that he is hopeful, but there are still lots of medical clearances that would need to, you know, go through to be able to actually make it back onto the field, I would assume. But I'm sure he wants to play.
He's way
But
ahead of schedule on Achilles recovery currently. As Jets, it says Jets refuse to rule out a postseason return. I heard even yesterday
yeah,
he was looking at week 12. But
nah, it seems
so Rogers says he's ahead of schedule while citing
unlikely.
multiple contributing factors: his rehab, his surgery by orthopedic surgeon Dr. Neil El Atrache, his diet, and the power of the mind, power of the manifestation. Is that so is this just a placebo effect that he has on
Hmm.
that?
I'll believe that he's close when he's taking contact drills in practice. But until then, I don't know that there's any point of even talking about it, though. Really, is there?
It's always fun to talk about Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers' kookiness, I think, but yeah. So, but it seems like the Jets have been playing reasonably well, and if you can win
mm,
ugly, you can, usually win at least probably 5 or 6 games in the league, and then you just have to win, you know, 3 or 4 more, and you're in the playoffs probably. So you're
yeah.
3-3 right now. So I think
But
that
they
might.
still have what, Miami and Buffalo in their
Well,
division.
they beat
So
Buffalo already.
yeah, they still have to play them again.
They play at Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, but as of right now, I think the Jets. I don't know if they're tied for, I think, or close to potential playoffs as at 3-3. Uh, the Dolphins 5-1, Chiefs 5-1, Jaguars, Ravens, Bills at 4-2, and then I guess the Steelers and Browns are each 3-2. So one of those teams is, I guess, those two teams are technically ahead of the Jets and in the playoffs if the playoffs started today.
right now.
Which,
It looks like this is their week 7 is their bye week. So maybe coming a little earlier than they'd want.
or maybe
Maybe
just when they want.
they're coming off of a win. Now they're
That's,
going to bye. So
well, you could say, well, maybe it's just going to give Aaron Rodgers one more week to recover, so he'll be back right after the bye, perhaps.
week 8. He said week 12. He's going to make it week 8. No, I don't think so. How was your third pick that actually was successful, Mike?
This pick was as successful as Aaron Rodgers' rehab has been so far, and that is My Arizona Los Angeles Rams under 48.5. The Rams won that one comfortably 26-9, and it was also comfortably under only a 35 total. So it would have needed two touchdowns in the late going to bring it to 49 and push it over. So I was fortunate on that one. I actually thought that maybe the Rams would keep it close. The Cardinals would keep it closer, and that was why it was going to go under. But it was the Rams cruising to victory, and I think the Rams are becoming the best. Their best team probably in the last, since the Super Bowl team. This is probably the best, by far the best they've looked. Even if you include the beginning of last year when everybody was still healthy, they still are looking. They're looking better.
Yeah.
Right. So they are actually. I looked at the playoff standings are up on ESPN right now, and so the Rams at 3-3 would be the 7th seed currently in the NFC. The Jets would be number 10 in line, behind the Texans and Colts at 3-3. The Browns are 3-2. It's number 7. The Chiefs would have the bye at 5-1, and because they have the best winning percentage in conference games. The Chiefs lost to the NFC.
Yes.
And the Dolphins lost to the Bills, so their conference record is not as good as the Chiefs conference record. So
we can go ahead and put those playoff spots in ink and just write it all the way through to the rest of the season.
the Dolphins, however, the teams that the Dolphins have beaten, they have the lowest strength of victory record in the conference, except for the Denver Broncos, who are 1-5. So the strength of victory, meaning the teams that I think the Dolphins have beaten are it's 172. So the teams that I guess they've averaged a 172 winning percentage among the teams that they've beaten. So or the teams that they've beaten have about a 172 winning percentage. So they haven't beat teams that have done particularly
had any success.
I think the team that has the most success that they've beaten is the Chargers, maybe at 2-3. Does that sound right?
That could be,
because they beat. I know they beat the Patriots, and yeah. Anyway, but so far, there are only 5-1 teams in the whole league right now, and the Chiefs are one of them. The team that they lost to, the Lions, are one of them. So in some ways, they have the best loss probably of the teams with the losses as well. So
right.
It bodes fairly well. How about you? How about your third pick that you were successful?
My third pick was I had Detroit -3 at Tampa, and Detroit ended up winning that game 20-6, comfortably over the 3-point spread. There were some fairly meaningful injuries, I think, in that game too, that may affect both of those teams going forward. David Montgomery, I think, went down with an injury. Detroit may have some difficulty running the ball, maybe without Montgomery, but they had enough to win that game and cover the spread on that one. So both of us ended up finishing 1-2 this week.
Yeah, I'm now, I believe, 9-9 on the season. You were 8-10, so I'm still 500. You are one game below 500, but it's still a long season. I think at this point last year we were both well under 500, so maybe this is just we'll trend upward as the time goes on, or as it's more likely, these are just random and we're going to be slightly below average on most things. So this is a high water mark for us.
No. Yes. And on the overall competition, though, this was a pretty rough week for you, wasn't it?
The worst week I had since week 1. It was almost as bad as week 1 for me.
Yeah.
Where did I finish?
Looks like you were down $1,400, $16.85. Like,
yes,
only 18 of 45 picks correct, 40% correct pick.
I more than doubled my losses from the previous several weeks combined. I was I'm minus 2,600 almost on the season. I was climbing my way back up. And if I discounted the over unders, I would have been slightly higher, but then those money line and spread just really destroyed me. So yeah, but you only lost a little bit of ground yourself.
Yeah, mostly because that Chargers game went my way. We had completely opposite picks in that game, and all three of those picks went my way. So that was the big swing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought the
in that
Chargers
one.
were. Yeah, we're both doing poorly. Yeah, I would have been plus.
You had Chargers and the over.
Yeah,
Chargers winning outright and the over, and
I did have the Chargers money line, and I thought,
it was
well, they should have won that game probably, but they have poor coaching, and just they're the Chargers. And why do I hang my hat with the Chargers?
yeah.
So it's yeah, I should hope. Well, it's because the Chargers always play very well against the Chiefs, and I think they're going to probably play very well against the Chiefs this coming Sunday. But maybe coming in, maybe they're probably a little less confident coming in than they have been in previous years facing the Chiefs. But it's a game that they're desperately going to need to win if they want to keep pace, because the Chiefs might have the division sewn up already again after about 7 weeks if they beat the Chargers, because they'll be 3.5 games clear on the Chargers with a win in hand. So it's
That's pretty crazy. And we did pretty well on that Chiefs game. It was just that Chiefs late cover
yes,
that hurt us, because we had expected the Chiefs to win, but not by enough points to cover the 10 and a
I
half
think
points.
that fourth quarter field goal, and as we were talking about before we went on the air, the Chiefs have only scored 12 points the entire season in the fourth quarter. They've scored 4 Harrison Butker field goals. They've averaged 2 points per game. It's 31st in the league. It kind of shows that ARG playing style that the Chiefs have been showcasing, where the Chiefs are not trying, it seems like, to score. They're just trying to hold the ball and hold the lead in the fourth quarter rather than extending the lead, and that's led to some close games. But it's also, the Chiefs' record has been pretty good, so maybe the results are fine in that department. But it's led to some frustration and some for bettors like us, and also led to some nail biting for Chiefs fans like us. So it's a winning strategy for Andy Reid, but it's a stressful strategy for the rest of us.
Yes. Yeah, so I ended up this week only down 101 and 7 cents.
Not bad.
So I was pretty close to even, but I like my up $500 per week better than this.
Yeah, you are your cumulative is plus 1,000 so far, plus 1,067 so far over 6 weeks. So you're almost $200 a week positive. So
Yeah.
not too bad, not too shabby. Maybe you will become a professional, sharp gambler, and I will just take whatever your picks are and subscribe to your newsletter, and then I will also make a little bit of money as well. But then I'll probably go against certain times, and then they'll just be worse. So
Yeah, but don't go with my locks though. That's what it seems like so far.
yeah, I should go with your I shouldn't.
Whatever I say is a lock, don't pick that one as one of the bets you go for.
Your free picks of the week I should go against, but I should subscribe to your premium newsletter and follow your insight, your deep insight picks.
There it is.
That's what it is. Or I should just or I should just become an over under better and bet the under,
Vendors, yes.
and I would have been up $1,100 probably this week.
Yeah, this week. No, I didn't do that calculation anyway, but yes, you would have done quite well. You would have won 13 of 15 bets if you would have done
so
like an under.
not quite. It's probably, let's average, maybe I would have been up almost $1,000 probably. It was a $90 times 11. So yeah, almost 1,000 given the juice. But speaking of juice, are the Major League Baseball bats, have they been juiced lately, or are we seeing a lot of runs being scored in the playoffs, or is it traditional playoff baseball where there's a lot of low scoring,
The
Uh,
games have been
action.
pretty close until this Phillies game two was been blown open while we've been on the air here anyway. Phillies are now up 10-0
Kyle Schwarber's
in the
hit
middle of
two
the
home
eighth.
runs this game,
And
and
Bochenber's at another.
so it's
Yeah.
10-0. So the Diamondbacks are going to be barring the miracle of miracles in the ninth inning, eighth and ninth innings. Um, they are going to be down 2-0. The Houston Astros are also down 2-0. So the teams that we wanted to lose so far are losing, and the teams that we wanted to win so far are winning. We have the potential Rangers Phillies World Series as it looks like right now. Do you have any other comment? Do you have any other comments about the series, how they're going? Are we're both happy, so I don't know if should we
Yeah.
jinx it or should we?
Well, it is Phillies are the home team, and so they're winning at home, but the Rangers have actually been winning on the road, which is maybe more of a surprise, I guess, anyway. But they were a close division, and Houston ended up like stealing the division on the last game, I think, of the season. So it apparently hasn't had much of an effect on the Rangers going into this this series, at least anyway.
No.
So the Rangers are in great shape looking ahead to the rest of this series, up 2-0 and 2 road wins. So they'll be coming home with a nice advantage.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because Houston's not too far from same state, so
Right.
I guess there's still probably a lot of home field advantage because if you go to the Cardinals game versus the Royals game, there's a lot of home
No.
field. But yeah, let's hope the Rangers can stay ahead just because the Astros we're tired of them and they cheat and they didn't really experience any negative consequences for
Yeah.
cheating. So
Anybody that knocks out the Astros is okay.
yeah,
In our and many other baseball fans.
and the Rangers have yet to win a World Series
Right.
in their history, and the Phillies are usually a star-crossed team themselves, and we like Bryce Harper. So, and the Diamondbacks haven't been around long enough to suffer. So even though the Diamondbacks haven't won,
They won in
has
2001.
won,
Yeah.
yeah. It's Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson. They already won once.
Yeah.
They don't need another.
No.
They're 84 and 78 this year too. That doesn't deserve to be a World Series winning team.
We'll go with that, sure.
Go with that. How do we should we so I don't there's no Royals news, I don't think. There's no real have they has there been any movement on the stadium location or they just kind of kept silent because I think they don't want to pick North Kansas City.
Well, I think the attorneys for the city of Kansas City and the county of Jackson County have inserted themselves into the deal. I think is what it seems like, at least by their most recent press release. It was
Yeah.
not written by the Royals. If you have read their previous press releases, last one was very different.
By the
It was actually like well written and was not snarky and didn't have any digs at anybody. Yes. It's not written by the Royals organization. So
by the Royals. Well, so I guess we'll still have to wait for the NKC Pro Bowl to be new Royals Stadium.
yeah.
A little while.
I'll have to try to swoop in there with no money and try to buy something in that area when they don't get the Royals park.
Yeah, maybe real estate will be cheap and you can buy we could build a new bowling alley.
Exactly the same as the old NKC Pro Bowl on the site. Yes. That'd be hilarious.
That's what I would do.
You know what would be great here? Bowling.
Or do like a double layer, like a two-story bowling.
Oh, like Top Golf, but with bowling.
Yeah. Or you could do it, you could make it 3 stories and be like Frank Grimes on The Simpsons when he complained that he lived in an apartment above a bowling alley and below another bowling alley. So you'd have
Sandwiched between
more
bowling.
apartments on the second floor, but a bowling alley on the first, and bowling alleys on each of the first and third
That's
floors.
awesome.
That would be the building. If I had like $1 billion, that would be the kind of building I would want to build. Have two
Would
separate.
you live there though, or would you just build this and try to sell it to someone else to
Uh,
to rent that area?
I don't know what I would do. I would do crazy stuff. Like that's why I don't have all that money. But if I did have a lot of that money, I would do crazy things and just try random crap and just see and just build whimsy and not have to worry about you know trying to turn a profit constantly. If I were just given all this money, maybe
Yeah.
I know you wonder like, would you do any worse than like the decisions that Elon Musk or Donald Trump do when they're given all that money at the beginning? So
Yeah.
it's just they're just as stupid as we are. They just happen to be in better circumstances, a lot of them. But anyway, um, speaking of
Really.
as stupid as we are, do we want to talk about our picks for next week's NFL games? At least stupid as I am, you're doing very well. But I guess on our locks of the week, I'm doing slightly
Oh
better.
yeah.
I am treading water and you are just ever so slightly sinking
Yes.
slowly. It's rising the sea level.
Nice.
You're the Maldives, and
Right. The rising tide.
yeah,
Uh-oh.
I'm still Venice. I guess there's it's still a possibility. Um, but anyway, um, let's go through our picks for this coming week. We can also talk about, should we did you made a bet on the Chiefs game? Maybe you could talk about your Chiefs bet, and then we can talk a little bit about what we expect the Chiefs to do, and then we can talk about our other bets.
So I'm taking the under in the Chiefs game. It's a relatively high number, 48 and a half.
48 and a half.
Chiefs defense has been so strong this season that it's hard to see them giving up a lot of points. And the Chargers haven't, I mean, they've been scoring, but this most recent week they didn't score all that much. In a kind of a struggle of a game, at least against the Cowboys, who have a good defense also. So it's I have a hard time seeing it being that high of a scoring game. The Chiefs offense hasn't been doing that much.
Yeah, the Chiefs defense has only allowed 88 points, I believe, the entire season, and actually 7 of those points were from the pick six against the Detroit Lions. So
Right.
they've only allowed one more. Even the team itself, offense or defense, has allowed one more point total than the 49ers. So they're the number 2 team overall. But I think they're also the only team that hasn't allowed more than 21 points scored by the opposition so far too. So they have been low in every game. The defense has played. Yeah, so if they keep the Chargers under 21, they'll probably win 27-21. So they or 26-21. I think they're favored by 5.5. So I could see them losing
Yeah.
those spreads.
26-21. You just write that down as the final score because it will be they'll not cover, but they'll win and stay under. That's
Or maybe they'll kick a meaningless field goal at the end to cover and win 29-21 to
trip
take
both to tick off someone at least anyway. But
yeah, this is
that'd be pretty funny. But the Chiefs do get Charles Omenihu to make his debut then this week after finishing his
suspension for disorderly kind of conduct. I guess he had some sort of altercation with, I think, a girlfriend or something that wasn't violent, but it was threatening or something. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It was before he was on the fans' radar. So
yeah, sometimes you get in trouble for not hitting somebody. Sometimes you don't get in trouble for hitting somebody. It's an odd. Sometimes it's an odd system of suspensions and things like that, because I don't know any other job really where you're punished for behavior that does not result in legal ramifications. Like if you have a job, you have illegal issues and maybe you're going to get fired because you work. But I think it's a little it's a little bit strange where sometimes it's publicity, it's public relation, it's more public relations than anything,
Yeah.
and not consistent in terms of what the NFL is looking for, and you
Yeah,
know,
almost arbitrary sentences then. Yeah, for
yeah,
it.
everything is, yeah, but that's also it's but there's no other way for the NFL to do it because everything is weird and random and a one-off. It seems like the whether it's the games or the
Officiating in the games or
hitting in the games, yeah, any of these are just so weird. So like it's hard, they're so hard to predict, and I
yeah.
guess it's what makes us keep coming back.
25 penalties also in that San Francisco game. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the weird circumstances of that San Francisco game last week.
25. That's 25
And
accepted penalties, right? So
yes, and that was
probably
another Hussey officiated game. John
so.
Hussey.
Would you say you're in a hussy if he is the referee?
I don't want to watch any game that he's officiating because they're just terrible to watch, and that game was just such a mess anyway. It didn't need them being inserted, into every third player. So when it's the 25 penalties, that's ridiculous.
John Hussey. Did you know? Well, let me read a few facts about John Hussey and see if you'll change your tune about John Hussey. He
Wait,
uh,
are the announcements out yet? He's not officiating the Chiefs game this week, is he?
I am not sure. We can look it up.
Go. I'll look that up. You look at
Somebody on
you look at the
Wikipedia
Hussey
has
facts.
edited his article. It says he is known as one of the worst officials in the NFL. I don't know if that's there's no source cited on that one.
Yeah,
But outside the
it's not an opinion. It's a fact. Obviously,
NFL,
if it's in Wikipedia, right?
outside the NFL, Hussey is the CEO and founder of Cuddly, a marketplace platform built specifically for animal welfare groups worldwide to help them fundraise. How about that, huh? Huh? He's kind to animals, this John Hussey. That's pretty good, right?
That is good. I mean, if you believe that, do you think? I assume that he like kicked puppies. That was just part of
He
what he
wants
was doing.
animals to be not neglected.
Um,
He
he's not. He's not officiating the Chiefs game. It
he's
is.
the CEO of a company that helps neglected and abused pets. Cuddly. It's a yeah. So I think that makes me like him a little bit more. And he hasn't done anything specifically bad against the Chiefs, has he? John Hussey.
Yeah, he was one of those horrible games last season that
Oh, was that the
was like had like 20 something penalties in it too. It was like a disaster game.
Oh, I guess he had the opener Chiefs Lions, but I don't remember any. I guess
Oh no, no, I mean last season. It
last
was a game last season that was like a horrible game to watch. I don't remember who it was, which game it
it was
was
the
though.
Chiefs Bengals game last year in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He also had the Chiefs Chargers Thursday night game last year, but the Chiefs won that game, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't recall him being terrible, but he is
Just
not.
so many penalties called.
Yeah, they're
He's calling the Commanders Giants game this in week 7.
he's not Jeff Triplett. He hasn't had the Carl Cheffers kind of thing. Cheffers is not. I don't know. He has had bad games against with the Chiefs, but it seems like the Super Bowl he was pretty much kind of hands off, which was nice. Bill Bennett is
He's
still
got the
my
Monday night game this week.
favorite referee because
Skippers.
they don't call too many penalties. So
She said Trey Blake is the head official for the Chiefs Sunday afternoon game.
Trey Blake or Tra Blake, perhaps.
I just assumed it was Trey. I don't.
It probably is Trey, but it's TRA, so you can't. There needs to be a line over the A
Yes.
if you want it to be Trey. He was he was in the he was the referee for the Vikings game against the Colts, where the Vikings came back from a 33-point deficit to win, but. The game was not without controversy for Blake because two apparent fumble recoveries for defensive touchdowns were blown dead early. But that was the Vikings still won that game. So anyway, but I don't. It's yeah. There's lots of times you can kind of think, oh, the referee is going to make a big difference, but it's not. I don't know. Does the referee have that much influence on the like because most of the flags are not thrown by the referee himself. The
Yeah,
referee usually throws some of the big ones, like roughing the passer. That can be a big problem. Sometimes it's offensive holding and things like that because, and the umpire is usually next to the referee nowadays rather than behind the line of scrimmage like he used to
yeah.
always be. I mean, in front of
The crews are consistent though. I believe it's not just it's the head.
crews are.
That's the head referee
Does
for
that
that
does the
crew.
head guy tell the crew like we call these close, or is it just sort of
Well, I thought maybe in that San Francisco game there was like a pregame near fight that you think maybe they were trying to, make some really strict calls early to keep the, chippiness down.
yeah, what
But
it's
it
strange. Why
was
was
just constant through the game. It was like constant flags through the
why
entire
why
game.
why did the Browns and the 49ers not get along? Like, those are teams that would play each other once every 4 years. Like they're not
Yeah. And it
rival.
was it was Debo Samuel was involved in it, and then he went out like early in the game. So
Yeah, I don't
I
understand.
don't know.
Why would those two teams be at odds with one another? It
I
doesn't
don't know.
maybe, or unless one of the teams just is I guess full of jerks, but it doesn't seem like the 49ers get in a lot of scuffles normally, or the Browns. I don't think maybe the Browns get in some, but that's because I think they play in the AFC North, which is extremely chippy, and as those teams are so close to each other geographically and they play
Yeah.
all the time. So like the Browns, Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, those guys always
But
fight.
you expect it to be trippy in those matchups. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Debo, he went to South Carolina for college. I don't. Yeah, I wonder what. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't. It doesn't make any sense. Why the 49ers and Browns? Well, I guess the one connection was I believe Eddie DeBartolo, the one-time owner of the 49ers, would also own the Browns, I believe.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm gonna look him up. Edward. Okay, so DeBartolo was from Youngstown, Ohio, and then he bought the 49ers. They
Hmm.
also owned the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, and then I think another DeBartolo, maybe um, Ed DeBartolo Jr., maybe. Uh, he was the owner of the 49ers. Then I think somebody of the DeBartolos also ended up doing something with the Cleveland Browns.
Hmm.
So I don't, or maybe it was Carmine Policy or something. It was some the 49ers and Browns had some personnel and some like front office overlap at one point, but
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it would come to play like on the field any like
No.
there aren't any like acrimonious ex 49ers or Browns that are switch teams or whatever. I don't that's just a strange
Yeah.
like if you had picked like two teams that don't like each other, it's like saying, well, the Chiefs and the Panthers really don't
They
get
never
along.
get along.
Yeah.
It's like it's oil and water, those two.
Yeah. That
The four times they played each other ever.
Seattle Jacksonville rivalry is a really
Yeah. We'll have to keep an eye on that. See where the chippiness comes from next. If it's another unrelated matchups,
yeah
let's get into it.
yeah, because they haven't even played. It's like they haven't played the Super Bowl. Like the Browns aren't even in close. It's such a like maybe you can see like maybe the Browns and Lions or something because they're close to each other geographically, and maybe there's some if the fans might be chat each other. Neither of those teams has had a lot of success historically or something like that. That would make more sense. But yeah, the 49ers,
Yeah.
that's just so
One of the teams drafted the local guy.
yeah.
They moved up in the draft to take the guy that's from the town.
Yeah, maybe
Something
Brock
like that, yeah.
maybe Brock Purdy somehow was really hated the Browns or something, and he was so glad I did not get drafted by Cleveland and instead was drafted by 49ers.
Yes, that's probably it.
He need some sort of wrestling, maybe some sort of wrestling heel take or something. Speaking of heel takes. Should my first pick of the week is another set of well, this is not a set of this is another set of non-rivals. Would be I guess Green Bay and Denver. I guess they did play in the Super Bowl 25 years ago when John Elway's first Super Bowl win, but the Broncos are hosting the Packers. The over under for that game is 45. I picked the under there. Jordan Love's team has had some trouble scoring points. The Broncos lately perhaps have also had some trouble scoring. The defense played pretty well against the Chiefs. I think maybe they can continue that against the Packers. And I think maybe Denver will probably win that game simply because it's at Denver. But
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think under is not a bad result. If you think of the opening week of the Raiders at the Broncos, it was a fairly low scoring close game where it would have been well under 45 as well. So I like the under here, under 45.
And these are two of the more question mark type teams in the NFL right now. Like, I don't know that anybody has them figured out, even if they know themselves what they're doing.
No.
But combined, can they get to 45 points? That'd be surprising to me, I think, too.
Yeah, you could maybe see a 28-20 or something like that type of game, but I would say it's probably more likely 21-17 type of,
or like a 15-13, some like weird low-ish scoring game is what you would
19 to 8
guess, at
again.
least anyway.
So it would be a 19 second week in a row for a 19-8, and it hadn't happened for 100 years prior.
Yeah.
The Chiefs Broncos 19-8 game was actually 100 years to the day after the original 19-8. I forgot to bring that up last time.
Oh wow.
But it was the Buffalo Bisons against the New York Yankees baseball football teams.
Yes.
18-8. But
maybe that's what we need to be doing, is looking back 100 years to see what kind of crazy scores we can predict for this coming year or this coming week.
Yes.
Maybe that would be just as accurate as making some of these predictions.
Possibly. So speaking of accurate, how about your second prediction?
My second pick is another under, actually. So I've got Arizona at Seattle. Over-unders at 44.5. Two, again, pretty defensive-oriented teams. I don't see this as being a high-scoring game, but
yeah, I guess you could say Arizona by definition is defensive-oriented because they aren't offensive.
Do they have an offense? Yeah.
Unless they don't score a lot of points. Neither team scores a lot of points. So yeah, I think it's a little interesting. That game is so high in terms of its over-under. If you look at the over-unders this week, the totals are very low compared to the previous week. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those games are under 40 points total, as the over-under right now, at least. So
the average over-under is a full point lower this week than in week 6.
Ooh, full point. So maybe this is the week to go more over, but I went under. You went under on your 2. I'm staying away.
Last week's average total was what? I didn't put that as a thing. The average was 36.7 points per game actual.
Okay.
The over-under number for the week was 43.9.
They've been
So they were a full touchdown per game under the Vegas line.
This is the only week that they've been under 43 points total for the over-under average.
Yeah.
And the 43s or 44s each of the previous weeks. So this is the lowest week of the season so far in terms of the over-unders. So maybe they'll be, I stayed away from the over-under for my second pick. I decided to go back to the 49ers, which was a source of your chagrin last week. Probably will be a source of chagrin for me this week. But I decided to say, well, I think they're playing at Minnesota. It's their second road game in a row. And Minnesota is 7-point home underdogs to the 49ers. I think this is kind of desperation time for Minnesota. They really, really need a win. And I think they'll give the 49ers, who have some injury issues right now, and maybe we see some chinks in the Brock Purdy armor developing. This might be the game where the 49ers don't beat that spread. And I think the -7 for the 49ers is a little bit too high, especially at Minnesota. I don't think the 49ers are a 10-point better team than the Vikings. The Vikings are a decent team. And I think they could easily lose by more than 7 points, but I don't think anybody would be that surprised if the Vikings actually won this game. It would be an upset, but it wouldn't be a colossal upset. So I think I like the Vikings +7.
I mean, it looks like they've played all of their games have been within one score again, right? Is that
Yeah, the Vikings
season? Are they all? It looks like I'm back to week 1. Yeah, every game has been within one score.
They haven't had the luck that they had last year, but
yeah, the biggest spread that they've had on the season was the 7-point loss to the Chiefs.
Yeah,
and so you could maybe say, are the Chiefs equivalent to San Francisco, or where is San Francisco compared to Kansas City?
yeah.
Just as
I think the Chiefs are they're comparable at least, and the Chiefs said only won by 7, and I think the Vikings do not have Justin Jefferson, but they're also this will be the second week that they haven't had Justin Jefferson, and I think the Vikings have a decent offense. One wide receiver is not necessarily going to make the game, especially you might think, well, the 49ers might also not have Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey or possibly Trent Williams. There's a lot of doubts on both sides, and as quarterback for quarterback, we might say, well, maybe I like Cousins better than I like Purdy. So at least in experience, it's a Monday night game, unfortunately. So maybe that is the maybe it's not it's prime time Kirk Cousins, which is not prime time Cousins for him.
That's the worry. But in some ways, knowing that you don't have your top receiver may be in some ways better than maybe having your running back and maybe having your quarterback trying to plan for the game. But then, you don't know what that's going to be. If they're game time decisions, then, the game plan you may have like 3 or 4 game plans depending on who's actually active for the game. So, knowing that your guy's out may be easier to plan as an offense, at least anyway, for what's going to happen in that game. You could make that argument at least.
You could.
Yeah.
How about your
time Cousins, though? Are you sure?
Well, it can't always be the case. I think it's not because Cousins. I think it's just a lot of it's just sample size and just what we notice bias rather than really anything at all. And I think being at home, usually we think of those big games for Cousins. They're on the road someplace, and he's not doing so well. But he's at home in the dome. You can't tell what time it is in the dome. It's this. It looks exactly the same, whether it's an I still like the Vikings to always keep it close. So I'm Vikings +7.
The most important part of the argument, though, against the primetime Cousins is that he doesn't have to win. He doesn't actually have to. He can still lose.
Yeah,
he just has to cover the spread. That's all that you're aiming for here, right?
Cover the spread. A meaningless field goal at the end to just like the Rams had against the 49ers to cover the spread. That's all I need.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're down 9. They kick a field goal as time expires, thinking maybe they can at least get an extra play for a random Hail Mary at the after an onside kick or something like that, and they could cover by 6, lose by 6. The Sean McVay special.
Yes, that's what you're aiming for.
I'm aiming for.
If you're picking an exacto, that's what you'd be going for.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
What are you going for in your second?
Third pick is maybe questionable, but I'm going for it. Detroit +3 at Baltimore. Even without Montgomery, a running back, I still think Detroit's air game is probably good enough to get by Baltimore. Baltimore has been playing so stupidly so far the games that I've seen. This is maybe picking me like not liking Baltimore and picking against them though in some way. So this may be influenced by my own
I
personal feelings on this one, but
I don't dislike that pick either. I think that Detroit does have a good running game, but I think their passing with especially with Jameson Williams being back has really given somebody else. And we'll say Laporta has been a really good tight end, rookie tight end this year. Probably the best rookie tight end, probably one of the best young tight ends in football already. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, has been wonderful. We didn't talk about. We didn't talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown's father, Equanimous and Amon-Ra and Osiris St. Brown. Did we talk? We didn't talk about him, did we? We mentioned.
You and I talked about it, but not on air. I don't think so.
Yeah. Do you know what their father's name was?
Not Saint Brown, just Brown, I believe. Right? Was it John Brown?
Yes. His name is John Brown, and he was a bodybuilder in the 1980s and was a Mr. Universe. And he thought his name was too boring, and so he's a former bodybuilder. And he decided to name his children Saint Brown, as in to make it seem a little more interesting. I remember it was somewhat similar to famous female IndyCar driver Lynn St. James added the Saint to her name because I think her name was James, and she wanted the Saint. She also liked actress Susan St. James from Kate and Alley. I believe she was Kate in Kate and Alley.
Yes,
I think
that's right.
I think Jane Curtin was Alley. But anyway, so he named his kids very interesting names because he had what he thought was a very boring name, John Brown. So he decided we're going to have Amon-Ra, Osiris, and Equanimous. Amon-Ra and Osiris make a little sense because they're both Egyptian gods. I don't know where Equanimous came from, but it's they do have interesting names. Two of his sons are professional football players and went to fine institutions like Notre Dame and Stanford. So he's I guess was a pretty good strong, literally and figuratively, father figure for the St. Brown boys. But yeah,
but is there a St. Brown, Mike?
There is no St. Brown. You might be your St. Bruno's and things like that. Maybe you could say no Brown. Nope, but that's just not it's a color and not a person.
Yes.
But anyway, there's no St. Brown.
But they have interesting names.
They do have interesting names, and
the success.
Yeah, and there are no such things in real life as giants, but I'm predicting the New York Giants will cover and they're at home against the Washington Commanders as my third pick. The Giants are +2 against the Commanders. The Giants had a pretty good game against the Bills. They probably should have won that game without some of those clock issues. And at the end of each half, it reminded me a little bit of the Chiefs and the Bengals AFC Championship game first half when they bungled that final play and got tackled inbounds when there was not enough time to run more than one play if they were not throwing it to the end zone. So
you'd think after the first half ends at the goal line, the one thing that's not going to happen at the end of the second half is being stuck at the goal line, not having enough time to run another play, right? But now,
they happened
both
twice.
halves.
It happened twice, and you have to. Well, the Giants did play fairly well against a pretty good Bills team on the road. They're at home against a less good Commanders team. So I think, maybe they've had some bad home losses this year, the Giants as well. So maybe they will try to make up for it. Whether Taylor plays or whether Daniel Jones plays, I don't think the team is much better one way or the other. So I still think being at home against the Commanders, the Giants have a good shot at winning that game. So I like them at +2 against the Commies.
Well, Washington just had a pretty good game last week, and so by this current trend is if you had a good game last week, you're probably going to have a bad game this week.
That's my guess. Maybe
Is that going for you then too?
maybe the Giants will play poorly in a win, and then they played well in a loss last time.
Yeah.
And Commanders will play poorly in a loss because they played well in a win last week. So yeah, it's I guess
And a second week, Tyrod Taylor's had some chance to like maybe settle into the role.
yes.
Daniel Jones is out, so it's not as jarring to just be there on relatively short notice to be filling in. So maybe it's less of a fill in and more of a full week of practice, and all the whatever jitters are gone. Yeah,
It's also a second road game in a row for Washington. They played at Atlanta, another at New York. So maybe that's maybe we're thinking of that second road game in a row. Is that usually cause for a loss to teams that are not really, really good teams?
no,
For teams like the Chiefs, they'll play two road games in a row and uh do just fine. They won at the Jets and then at the Vikings, but I don't know if every team can do that.
hmm.
Any other games this week that are looking interesting, appetizing?
There are a lot of really questionable games, I think, coming up. Raiders, Bears. What do you think of that one? It's going to be backup quarterbacks facing each other.
I think that might. Well, I'm another game. I'm a little bit. Yeah, Raiders Bears. I think could be a fun game if the quarterbacks were there, but I don't know with the backup quarterbacks how that will.
But it's just a giant question mark trying to predict what would happen in that one, though, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Buffalo, New England could be ugly as well. At least one-sided ugly.
Expect that to be a blowout, but
But Buffalo always plays poorly against New England, and New
yeah.
England plays fairly well against Buffalo usually, I think. So is this Mac Jones breaking out, or is it Bailey Zappi coming out party? It's what I think the marquee matchup for sure is the Sunday night game. That's
for sure.
Miami at Philadelphia. That's
5-1 teams.
That's gonna be a good game.
Yeah. Which means it will be a total dud, right? There'll be like 43 penalties. It'll be 6-3 as the final. But it will be three safeties and a field goal.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention though, last week's game, one of the best betting games possible was that the Raiders game where they had the safety to cover the 2.5-point spread.
But they were on it by 2 and they won by 4. The safety at the end. Good old Mac Jones.
That was the best scenario. That's for me that would have been that's the perfect finish.
And that's what that helped both of us win that game. We each had the Raiders -2.5, and they won by 4. And that's the only game. That's the only game that we agreed on, and we won on all 3 of those. So that was our game across the board combined, I believe.
And a safety saved us though, Mike. Is that that's great, right?
Yeah, it's our favorite method of scoring is the safety, I believe.
Yeah. But it's not just a safety; it's a safety that actually flipped
the game. Yeah,
the game on the betting line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even better.
And we stayed under the 41.5 because the Raiders did not do anything once they got the ball after the safety. They decided to just end the game rather than try to score a touchdown to come. So there were no shenanigans afterwards that could have pushed it over. So we were very fortunate with that one. Hopefully we'll be fortunate with our picks this week more so than last week when we were, especially when I was just absolutely dreadful. I need to try to at least, I am not even close to breaking even on this semester. Not this semester, this season. I'm thinking in academic terms.
Yes.
Still, this season, but hopefully it'll be this week will be better this week than last week for me. It'll be a reverse of last week. The absolute value pick. I'm starting to cough now because I'm still experiencing the remnants of SARS Corona-19. So maybe we should.
Or is it your frustration with week 6? That's
Excuse me. I need a cough button.
Yes.
Like they have on
Yes.
those big, Fraser Crane-esque radio booths at KACLC. Oh, speaking of Fraser, have you watched any of the new Fraser?
I did watch the premiere episode. I have not watched it yet.
What'd you think?
It's entertaining. Yeah, it's if you like the previous Frasier, you're likely to enjoy the humor of this one as well. It's
okay. I hope so. I was
the tone is similar, but it's definitely different because it's a lot of different cast at least anyway. So
yeah, MJ is abroad. She is in Budapest as we speak right now. So I was waiting, and the premiere was on Friday of this past week. So I was waiting for her to get back from Europe before we watched the new Frasier.
You're not cheating and jumping ahead.
No, I'm fine with watching the 232 episodes, 233 episodes of Old Frasier on Hulu or Paramount Plus, which they have both of them. So
right.
So either one. I watch on Hulu more because my new Hulu plan doesn't have commercials. So pretty fancy.
Yeah.
And we'll be sitting hopefully in a pretty fancy position this time next week talking about this past week's games. But do you have anything else to add before we sign off today?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please like and subscribe to our podcasts or YouTube channel. We appreciate your viewership and or listenership a great deal, and your patronage support means a lot to us. And we hope that your teams do swimmingly this weekend, and you may have the gambling fairies in your favor as this weekend comes to an end. So we will see you again next week, and until then, we bid you good day. Yeah, it's a different voice when it's this lady versus the one on the
web
browser one. This is a more lower robotic recording in progress kind of.
It sounds like the Google voice, Google Assistant voice. You have an iPhone though, don't you? Yeah. So you've
I don't really ever use it, but
yeah.
I always find that the voice thing's weird.
Yeah. I always get annoyed with if I'm in the car, like you use it for like directions and stuff if you want. Like it won't let you type it in if you're driving, so you have to use voice commands if you're in the car and moving. So like I will use it then, and or like in a text message while I'm driving, then I can hit it and then it will read it to you, and then you can have it respond back. But I always get annoyed if it says like, do you want to respond? And if I say no, she always says, okay, then. It's like, just say okay. Why do you need to say okay then? It's it's being like disappointed that I'm not responding to it, right? It's like
sure, kind of alrighty then, kind of
absolutely. But I'd rather say that than okay then. Okay then.
You want
it's like storming off then. It's like what it sounds like it's doing.
Oh, very well.
Yeah. Whatever. Just have it say that. That'd be better. I would prefer that over okay then. Just say okay. What the then is unnecessary.
Yeah. Unless it's
Should I put that in? Should I put this in the episode?
sure. Your rant of the week. Our anti-technology, our
Yes. Love
Luddite.
WTPH.
Yes, our old man yells at cloud.
Perfect. All right. Good to go?
Yes.